Okay, it's 2 minutes after, so I think we'll get going. Thank you everyone for joining the webinar today, which is all about how to use change approval policies to accelerate your changes. So let's kick off. If you've been to any ServiceNow presentations, you would have seen our safe harbor notice before. This is just to make sure that if we talk about any future-looking, forward-looking statements, that you don't base any buying decisions on that. I don't think we're going to be doing that today, but that's just in case. This is part of an overall series of live on ServiceNow interactive event sessions. So if you scan that code, you will be able to go to our page where the rest of the sessions are shown, and you can register for those and attend any of those that interest you. They're normally shown on our community page. And just some housekeeping. So we will save all questions until the end of the session. So if you do have a question, please type it into the Q&A button in Zoom, and we'll monitor those, and then we'll go through the answers to those at the end of the presentation. And just to note that this presentation is being recorded and may be published on our Now community page. We will have some polls, and we will send out a survey after this event to get your feedback. Okay, so thanks again for joining. My name is Mike. I'm an outbound product manager at ServiceNow in the ITSM business unit, mainly looking after change and DevOps. So first thing I'd like to do is start with a poll. So I'm going to launch the poll, but these are the questions. I just want to get an idea in terms of whether people have heard about change approval policies and, you know, what your awareness is and their usage. So please go ahead and answer that question, which you should see coming up on the screen. Can everyone see the poll?
I can.
Yes, we've got some answers coming through. That's great. Okay, we'll give it a few more seconds. Okay, I'm going to end the poll here. All right, so just sharing the results. So looks like most of you have some awareness of what change approval policies are, but would like to know more. And some people have not used them yet, and then one person is using them a lot. So that's great. Thank you for that. All right, so let's keep on. All right, just some context here. So for change managers and change teams in customers around the world, there's a lot of challenges today, and that's largely driven by changes in technology and changes in how we manage technology in our organizations. So where typically we started life, you know, a number of years ago with a central IT department managing different functions, you know, that's a lot of the practices around managing IT have grown, largely driven by cloud, the move to cloud and the move to digital. And we see a number of different technology stacks out there, you know, legacy and digital and DevOps, etc., are driving a lot of change in organizations. And organizations rarely have, just one or two of these. They have a mixture of different technology stacks and different teams running different processes, agile, legacy, waterfall, etc., that they have to manage. And when it comes to change, that can be a challenge. How do we manage all the changes that we need to and ensure we have the right governance over those complex multidisciplinary areas? And at the same time, there's a lot of push to increase change velocity and obviously make sure we maintain our change governance. But we also need to make sure that we can do that in a manner which adheres to our organization's risk policies and controls. So at the center of this is the change manager, who is under increasing pressure to increase change velocity and handle higher volumes of change. And the legacy change processes and implementations that we see at customers often can't handle that. So we need to respond to that. So how do we do that and ensure our governance remains in place? So we do that by means of ensuring that we can increase our deployment frequency, reduce our change lead times, and get faster time to value whilst minimizing change failures by using various solutions that we have in the ServiceNow platform to allow approvals to occur and state transitions to occur in changes with automation. So how do we use conditional automation and tailoring for the various use cases that we have to meet our change requirements for our organization and the appetite for risk? Sorry, I've lost my... Okay, so within ServiceNow, there's a number of different features in the change management module that have been brought into innovations that have come into the platform over time. So change approval policies have actually been around since Madrid release, so a number of years already. Multimodal change, which is change models. Change success score, which looks at how well or not so well your teams are doing at change. Using machine learning to determine risk automatically. We have our suite of DevOps products that handle the DevOps side of things. And then other features that we've brought in to help automate the change journey and provide a more fit for purpose, data-driven approach to change. Now, why are we talking about change approval policies today when they've been around for a while? Well, the simple answer to that, and it's borne out by the poll results, is that a lot of customers that I talk to are not yet using them. So even though they've been there for a while, some customers are not aware, or some customers are aware, but they'd like to know more and understand what they are and how to use them. So that's why we're talking about that today. So what are the benefits of change approval policies? Well, essentially, they allow you to automate your change approval process. So you can automatically approve changes which meet your organization's approval criteria, which we'll go through some examples of that. You can also automatically reject changes which don't meet the approval criteria, or you can dynamically add manual approvers based on data available on the change or in the platform based on the CMDB, etc. So all that allows you to get the outcomes that are shown there. So it allows you to increase your change velocity, but still maintain your necessary audit and governance controls. Obviously, increase efficiency by reducing the manual overhead on the change manager and the team, and also increase efficiency by reducing the overhead on change assignees having to manually chase approvers. They're easy to maintain, which I'll show you, and they also allow you to quickly respond to ad hoc approval requirements which may come to you from time to time, depending on your business, your changing business requirements at your organization. So they'll allow you to respond to that very rapidly without the need for a developer. So how do they work? Essentially, and the demo will go into this in a bit more detail. It will probably be a bit clearer once you see it, but there are essentially three elements. There are inputs to the approval policy, there are decisions, and then there are approval definitions. So policy inputs are the data that you're going to use to evaluate the decision, the approval decision, and that data can be any data that's available in ServiceNow on the platform. Then we have the decisions themselves, which use the decision table, which I'll show you, and it uses simple condition builder. As I said, there's no code involved. And then the approval definitions, which are, based on data, who should approve this change? Should it be done automatically or manually by a specific person or group? So some examples of how they're used. If you have change success score, if you're an ITSM Pro customer, you would have the ability to use change success score, which determines how well or poorly teams are doing at change. You can use that score as an input data on a policy to determine, for example, if teams are doing well at change and they have a good history of success, then maybe we can relax the governance requirements around those teams' changes and get those changes automatically approved. We can also look at approving low-risk changes for certain services or teams. We can add additional approvals if we need them, for example, for a critical business service change or some other criteria around a team that might need some help, for example. Our regulatory requirements will be satisfied when it's auto-approving changes, because we have the audit trail and we have the policies in place in the platform, so they're easily auditable and traceable. And as I said before, it allows us to be agile and respond quickly to changing conditions around change approvals. This overall allows us to accelerate our time to value for the business around change management. And overall, as I said, it allows us to tailor our change approvals to increase our change velocity. So now we will jump into the demo. Okay, so this is an example of a change approval policy in a demo instance that I have here. So as I mentioned in the slides, change approval policies have inputs. You can see some of the inputs here. Now, this particular example is a DevOps example, but it doesn't have to be DevOps. It can be just normal change that's non-DevOps in your environment. But this is just an example to show you we can pull data from any tool that's integrated with ServiceNow in this case. So for this example, we're pulling in software quality results, scanning results from a tool like SonarQube. We're pulling in testing results from our testing tools. Number of outages in the last 7 days would obviously come from the outage table within ServiceNow. Code smells and security hotspots, vulnerabilities, etc. Those would come from scanning tools like SonarQube. And with that data, we can then make some decisions on how we want to use that data. So over here, we can see there's an execution parameter. So we can either say we want the first decision that matches to be invoked, and then the system will exit once it matches the first one. or we can say, I want to run all the decisions that match. So if you have, 10 or 50 decisions and you want all those to be interrogated, then you have the choice for the policy on running all those. Now, how does it actually work? So you can see we've got 3 decisions here. We've got an order field over here, which tells the system which order to run these in. So you can see DevOps high risk is the first one. If I open that one, I'll just show you what that looks like. So as I said, it uses a condition builder. So there's no code involved. It's just taking the data and allowing us to build conditions which make sense for our environment in terms of what we want to check. So in this case, the high risk one is going to call a manual approver. So I'm sorry, take that back. In the high risk one is going to auto reject the change. So it's going to reject the change on behalf of the DevOps manager, which is a virtual user in this case. And that's going to occur under these conditions, if these conditions are matched. So if we have had outages, more than 2 in the last 7 days, and if these results around our testing results, software quality results, vulnerabilities, match these values, and our CI is this one, rewards processing, this will match and it will auto reject the change. Let's have a look at the next one. Oops, sorry. Let's jump back to where I didn't want to go. Let me just jump back to that. Okay, so the next one is when all the policies are met, it's going to auto approve the change using this virtual DevOps manager approver. So if these conditions are met, if we haven't had any outages, if our test results are greater than 95%, if it's that CI and the software quality results are less than that figure, etc., then that will match and the change will be automatically approved. And the last one is basically, if none of those first 2 are met, this is a default one, a catch-all, which, as you see, doesn't have any conditions on it. And in this case, it's going to assign the approval to a group, the assignment group in this case. But this could be, for example, an approval group from a CI or a specific group that you specify, or a user. It can be a group or a user. So that's essentially how that works. So you've got the inputs, the decisions, and the approvers. Now let's have a look at how that actually works. So the first thing to note is, how do these actually get invoked? Well, they're getting invoked via a flow. So this is a flow that will be triggered for those specific types of changes. And you can see here, it's going to look up the values for those. It's going to look up the values for the policy data, and it's going to run this subflow to find those values, and then it's going to plug it into that flow. This is the subflow that's going to get that data. It's going to plug it into that flow and then invoke the policies to run. So if you're using Flow Designer already in your environment, then that's the way this gets invoked. But even if you're using the old ServiceNow workflow, you can still invoke change approval policies through the workflow. So let's look at how it works in practice. This is a view of a pipeline, a DevOps pipeline that's running. But obviously, this is just a DevOps example. You could look at a normal change, and it would show you the similar information. So in this case, in this execution of the pipeline ran, and a change was created automatically. So let's go and have a look at that change to see what happened. So here's my change request, which was created automatically. And you can see down here, the change policy that was applied was all the DevOps policies were met. So that means all those conditions that I showed you before were met. And you can see that this change was approved automatically by the DevOps manager. So it met all the conditions and the change was automatically approved. If I have a look at this one, you can see that in this case, something went wrong. So let's have a look and find out what happened here. Okay, so you can see this change was auto-rejected in this case because it met the conditions for the auto-reject, where in this case the test results were not adequate, so the change was rejected by the system. And you can see here the DevOps manager user rejected the change because the test results were insufficient, the conditions were not met to auto-approve it. And then in this particular case, the third case, where the pipeline went through and the change was created automatically, we can see here that there was a manual review that was done. So the system sent this change for manual approval, and you can see here it went, in this case, to the application development team, and this person manually approved the change once they'd had a look at the data and had a good understanding of whether all the conditions for this organization had been met. So that, in a nutshell, is essentially how change approval policies work. Now let's just jump back to the slides for a second. Okay. So now that we've gone through that, I just had another poll question to ask. So I'm going to bring up the poll, and you can see the question on the slide on your screen. Let me bring up that, launch that poll. Oops. Oh, sorry. I think I've already done. I think I launched them both at the start. Apologies. Okay, so maybe you can respond in the chat if you don't mind. Sorry, that's my fault. I've not used the polls before. So what I'm trying to get from the audience here is, now that you've had a brief look at these, do you think you will get started with making use of them? Or do you need any more information? Or do you not think that these will be of any use to you in your organization? Happy for you to answer that again. And we'll just wait for answers to come in. And you can put your results, your responses in the Q&A as well if you want, or in the chat. Okay. Thank you very much for that. All right. So I do have, which I will send out to everyone here, I do have some additional resources with additional detail, which you can have a look at. Links to our documents, the learning portal, the community site, and some videos, etc., to give you more information. But I'm happy to pause now and see whether we have any questions.
We do have some questions in the Q&A. So the first one is, do we need to configure flow for new change policy, or is it an out-of-the-box functionality? That's from Vamsi.
Okay, hi Vamsi. So yes, you do need to configure the flow to invoke the change policies. We do provide out-of-the-box flows and out-of-the-box policies to customers, but obviously you'd probably want to tailor those to your own organization. So yes, you do need to configure those, but the flow configuration is probably something that just happens once up front. And from then on, if you need to update your approval decisions, etc., the change manager can do that themselves without needing a ServiceNow admin for that. Change manager role will be able to update policies. So hopefully that answers that one. What do we have in the chat? Okay, any other questions?
So on this one, the user logged in as M Jennings. On the second poll, voted B, looks good, but would like to know more details. So okay. I put everybody as able to talk, so you can unmute yourself and ask your question and exactly what you would like to know more about.
Yeah, please unmute and happy to have a chat. Mr. or Mrs. Jennings.
You should be able to talk.
Or happy for you to put your question in the chat if you're shy. What information would you like? What if you want more details, what information would you like to see? If you're having trouble unmuting, happy for you to type in the chat.
So in the meantime, we can ask Cheryl. Cheryl has good information to discuss with my team. We looked at it in the past, but maybe a good time to bring it up again. So Cheryl, anything you would need to be able to, is Cheryl still here? She's not here anymore. Okay, so any other questions from the team? Or from the people on anything else you would like to know more about? You're very quiet this week today. Very shy group.
Right. All right. Well, hopefully you found that useful, and if it spurs some interest and motivation to go and look at that functionality, as I said, it's been around for a while in ServiceNow, but a lot of customers don't know about it or are not yet using it, and it is a really powerful feature in change management, which will help change managers get a better hold of really increasing change velocity and automating the approval process. It's really great for that. As a former customer, I can attest to that. I use it a lot. So if you do have any questions or any follow-up required, please let us know. Otherwise, I think we'll end the call there. Thank you very much for your attendance.
And feel free to sign up to future sessions. We have a lot of upcoming sessions this year. So the calendar is filling up. So looking forward to seeing you in our future sessions. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thanks, everyone.